So in our previous video, we made a cube. Not super exciting, but it's a start, right? So we're going to talk about a couple important things while you're making your parts. So particularly making your 2D sketches. So we're going to make several 2D sketches and play around with them. So I'm going to just stay in this same getting started document. I'm going to create a new part. So it's created Part Studio 2. So I've got a fresh document. Well, it's really a fresh part within the same document down here on the tab. So let's get started. So I'm going to go ahead and sketch. I'm going to pick a sketch plane, front, top, or right. You can choose any one of those. I'm going to pick the front and change my view so that I can see it a little bit better. So last time we used this predefined rectangle, and notice that we have several options for creating a rectangle. I'm going to make this particular object using the line tool up here. So what I'm going to make is, I'm just going to kind of make some arbitrary shape. Maybe we're going to make something a little bit more exciting. Just going to kind of click in here and go and kind of explain what it's doing as I'm starting to click. So one of the things that you might notice is you see that little yellow line that pops up. So that's a reference. So what it's trying to do is it's trying to say, hey, maybe you want the next click to be perfectly horizontally aligned with that dot that's on the left side there. So this point over here. And it's given you essentially a little helper. So I can move my mouse around a little bit, but it's keeping my next click perfectly aligned. I can do a similar sort of thing if I want my next dot to be aligned here and here. Here and here. There we go. You'll see that I can make a perfectly vertical line that's lined up with this point on that side. So um, those little yellow pieces that you see show up. Essentially, those are quick references. And you'll see that it kind of snaps in place. And actually is the name of it, snaps, right? So I can make it perpendicular to that yellow line right there. I can make it, if I curve around like this, I can actually make a curved line. Let me move back to the dot. See, if I move back to the dot, I actually get a change. There's the curved line, move back to the dot, I get a straight line. So I can do some pretty cool stuff. Maybe I'll make a curved line in here. Let's do that. See the dot that shows up there? That's the center point of this curve there. And I'm going to click back to, I'm actually just going to click right here. Then I'm going to press Escape on my keyboard and end my sketch. So one of the things that you need to make sure you have for the extrude function or for manipulating shapes in 3D is you need to make sure that your sketch is closed. So a closed sketch means that there's no cuts in it. So right now, this is not a closed sketch, right? Because it's got an opening down here. So I'm going to go ahead and make this a closed sketch, and you'll see that Onshape recognizes that you have a closed sketch. I'm going to do that by using the line tool, and I'm just going to click these two dots. So left click, and then left click. And notice what happens. I get this little gray section inside here, and gray means enclosed. So if I were just to jump over, so let's do that. I'm going to click check, jump over to extrude. I can extrude that shape. And the reason I can extrude that shape is because I've got that grayed out enclosed section. Let me break it and show you what happens if we don't. So I'm going to delete that line. And I'm going to go back to extrude. Now notice that when I try to click over here, I don't get an option to click, and that's because I don't have an enclosed shape. So I screwed up. So let's go back, Let's go to our sketch. It actually gives me some more helper text. We'll talk about that in just a second. I'm going to close that. Great. So we've got an enclosed shape. So that's one of the first things we need to remember, enclosed shape. Second thing to remember is we want this sketch to be fully defined. So what fully defined means is that each one of these lines and dots that you see on the sketch have a set place. So they're fully defined locations, or essentially we've fully defined the links and locations of each of these lines and dots. The way to quickly determine if something is fully defined is if I click on a line or a dot, I left click and hold, and if I can move it around, then it's not defined. If I left click and hold and try to move it around and it doesn't move, then it is defined. So let's go ahead and start defining stuff. And I will define stuff using all of my icons starting at this vertical line right here to the right. So all of these things define points. So I can define relationships. That's what these are right here. So perpendicular, concentric, parallel, tangent, horizontal, vertical, perpendicular. So basically all of your geometric relationships. And or I can define lengths or location. That's what this dimension is. So let's go ahead and start dimensioning. So one of the things about the relationships, because there's always going to be multiple ways, if you remember geometry, multiple ways to define shapes, right? I can do it with an angle, I can do it with sides, lengths, so on and so forth, is you need to know how you intend to use this shape. So in other words, if I want the ability to always change this curvature, I might want to define the radius here. But if I don't really care what the curvature is, and I care more where this point is in space, then I need to define that point in space. So something that will be important as you're designing something is really the intent on how you use these measurements. So what do you intend to change, or what do you want to be able to change? So we have to think about that. For now, we're going to kind of just play around with it. So I'm going to define, let's just define some lengths here. Maybe I always want this line to be a certain length. So I'm going to click on it. I'm going to pull out this dimension. And let's say that I want that to be 1¼ inch. So I'm going to just type 1.25. And I'm just going to try moving stuff around, right? So I'm going to click this dot over here and notice that, oh, I can't change its length anymore, but I can move it at an angle. So let's define some angles here. So I'm going to click on my dimension. And maybe I want these two lines to always be 115 degrees. Why did I pick 115 degrees? I don't know. I'm just making it up. I'm going to press Escape so that I remove the selection of the tool. So that's a nice trick. It's just press Escape if you want to get out of using a particular tool. I'm going to move this dimension down so it's a little easier to see. And I'm going to see what this did. Okay, it kind of works, right? So those two lines are always 115 degrees apart, but this line's still not anchored essentially to this point, right? I can rotate it. So let's give some more dimensions here. I'm going to say that this point in space, I always want it to be, clicking those 2 points, I always want that point to be 3/4 of an inch from the horizontal. Let me move this front view so we can see it. And notice what I did when I defined the height of this point. It turned these two lines black. So that means these two lines and that dot are fully defined. So you might be thinking, well, wouldn't it be better just to add more dimensions to it? So what if I wanted the angle here, or I wanted to add another dimension, maybe between this point and this point? Can I add an additional dimension. You can, but you have to be careful that you don't over-define something. So if I get too wild and I start defining, say like, well, I can just define, define, do this. I'm just clicking on dimensions, so that's radius. Let's do 8.5. And let's make the angle in here. Sure. That. Cool. Everything is fully defined because it's all black. So back to what I was originally suggesting is, well, can I add more dimensions? Is it more better than too few? And the short answer is you should be careful. So we can over-define something. So if I add this dimension in here, notice that it turns gray. And if I try to change the value here, so let's say instead of its default value there, I try to type in 185 degrees. It says sketch cannot be solved. And the reason for that is because we're adding too many definitions. So I can't figure out which of the definitions are the things that drive the shape. So I'm going to press Control Z and remove that dimension. So we want to make sure, and it actually is pretty smart, we want to make sure that we don't over-define our sketch. So the takeaway, this one's pretty complicated in my definition, but the takeaway is make sure it turns all black, because all black means that you have fully defined your sketch, and we want to make sure we fully define our sketches. So I'm going to take that, and I'm going to extrude. I'm going to click on the sketch. I'm going to right click and rotate, and now I have a little funny block looking thing there. Sure, make it 2.5 inches. And there we go. Cool. Thanks for joining me. Hopefully this was helpful, and see you in the next video.